JPMorgan says don't use the 4% rule. It could torpedo your financial plan, your retirement. What should you do instead? I've got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. Are you familiar with the 4% rule and where it comes from? And there's been more and more people and financial experts coming out and saying, yeah, I don't think it applies anymore. And most recently, JPMorgan has come out and said, yeah, I wouldn't use the 4% rule. And not that you could use something higher. They're saying use something lower. So the 4% rule, this is going back to the early 90s. There was an individual that ran all the numbers and basically tried to answer the question, what is a sustainable amount that you can withdraw from your portfolio, from your retirement portfolio, and regardless of the situation, sort of regardless of what could happen, whether the markets go up, go down, go sideways, what's a sustainable withdrawal rate? And the individual did all sorts of analysis, and over these rolling time periods of 25-year periods that, well, if you withdraw X percentage from your portfolio, how would that have performed, or what would the result have been? Would you have run out of money if you withdraw this percentage given this time period, that time period, and so on? And what it led to was a 4% withdrawal rate, then adjusted for inflation, is a sustainable amount for you to withdraw from I believe the original data, I didn't look that up for the video, was originally a 50-50 portfolio and not 50% diversified stocks and 50% diversified bonds. I think it was just 50% stock, 50% bond. That's it. There wasn't diversification, the original analysis, but it essentially, given during all these rolling time periods from the Great Depression and all of that, a 4% withdrawal and then adjusting that for inflation was mathematically determined to be a sustainable withdrawal amount to ensure that your portfolio didn't run out of money too quickly, that your portfolio lasted about 25 years. How that worked was basically at retirement, you would withdraw to supplement your Social Security and other income sources 4% of your portfolio, and then the next year you would add an inflation component to it. So if there was 10% inflation, okay, just to make the math easy, then the next year you would withdraw 4.4%. Right, and so because 10% of 4%, 0.4, so and then you would just continue to do that for adjusting for inflation for the rest of your life. 4% was sustainable. Well, is it different this time? That's one of the most dangerous phrases in finance is it different this time? And there's been lots of people, again, JPMorgan, the most recent, saying 4% doesn't work anymore. Right after they came out with the 4% rule, and then they started being more, experimenting more with the type of portfolio and diversification and so on. They actually said it's not 4%. This was in the 90s and early 2000s, not 4%. You could withdraw 4.5 or 5. Well, now JPMorgan Chase, others are saying, no, it's less. You shouldn't be withdrawing 4%. And we've done some videos here that said, yeah, I like something closer to a 3% withdrawal rate. The bank even says 2 to 3% withdrawal rate. Why? Why might reasonable people say, I don't know if 4% is a sustainable withdrawal rate anymore? And the first reason is the prospect for lower future returns. And no one knows the future. And I would say it's very dangerous to say, well, we're in a new normal, because when that phrase came out 15 years ago, what we've seen since isn't a new normal. It's the same. But the idea is, if you look at price to earnings ratios, so how high is the stock price compared to the underlying profits or earnings of the company, for the past couple decades, we've existed in a higher price to earnings ratio than prior decades, meaning it's more natural for the stock market to be pricing stocks at a 19, 20, 21 times earnings, where back in the future, it was closer to 16, 17. And if today we're, the market's pricing in a higher price for earnings, well, could that mean future returns are a little bit lower? I get the reasoning, I get the justification. Time will tell. The other potential reason that future returns could be less is back during the time they were doing all this data in the 90s. They were looking back over 60 years or so on, at a time when on average interest rates and bond rates were 4, 5, 6%. And so during that entire time period, you had the extreme interest rates of the 80s, but they were coming down, but the average was in that 4, 5, 6% range. That's not the average anymore. That is what we're experiencing right now, and it feels like it's going to break something in the economy because we've got so much debt, both our government and consumers. And so it's sort of like, well, let's just hold our breath here, and at some point interest rates will calm back down, inflation will calm back down, and we'll get back to the 1, 2% interest rates where we can sort of normalize all of this debt. And guys, if you are a lender, you own bonds, which is most of what you're going to own, or a large percentage of your portfolio out there in retirement. And it used to earn 5% interest, and in the future we're expecting it's only going to earn 2% interest. That's going to have a significant impact on how long your portfolio can last, and therefore what a sustainable withdrawal rate is. And then sort of the final reason that I'll cite here why maybe a 4% rule is no longer appropriate thinking and an appropriate sort of rule of thumb, and it should be a little bit less, is people are living longer. People are living longer on average. And so if the original data looked at, 25 years, what withdrawal rate would allow your portfolio to be resilient for 25 years? It might need to be longer now. It might need to be 30 or 35 years now, and adding one more year makes a big difference. And so people are living longer. That's a great thing. That's a good thing. It makes it challenging for retirement and a sustainable withdrawal rate. So what should you do? We've said often, don't run your financial life on rules of thumb. Don't make enormous financial decisions, like the biggest financial decision you're going to make in your life, when to retire, when to step away from that paycheck, and how much to withdraw. Don't make that entire decision on a rule of thumb. So the 4% rule should have been 4% guide. I've done several videos about this on how you map out a confident retirement plan. It's that 5-factor retirement plan. And then after you do all of that work, as you get pretty close, you're then sort of stress testing it against a 4% rule, or what is the withdrawal rate, and confirming is that sustainable. I like something closer to 3%, like JPMorgan is saying, but is that just what you need to do, or are there other options? Well, there's a couple. And one, I want to go back to the idea that, in that 4% rule, that original math, it's 4% withdrawal rate, and then it just continues to go up from there. Well, in reality, you're going to have different phases of your retirement. And we've called these, at the beginning of retirement, there's the go-go years where you're doing everything. You're traveling, you're spoiling grandkids, you're active, you're young and you're active. And so setting your retirement at that spending level, that's important, and an inflation adjustment, that's important. But the next phase, and it depends on your level of activity, your health, but normally if the go-go years are the first part of retirement, that's probably 65 to 75. But then you start getting to the slow-go years, and that might be 75 to 85, where you're not traveling as much because your knees hurt and it's just not as enjoyable, and you've seen those things, and you get your life gets a little more simple, and so you don't spend as much. Okay, so maybe you can forecast in your retirement that, you're spending a lot initially in retirement, but then it slows down. And then the last stage is the no-go years. And that is, I joke that, going to Walmart is a good week. Like that's the extent of your activity. You don't do as much. You're not spending as much. You're not going out to eat as much. You're not traveling, those sorts of things. And maybe your spending even goes down at that point. So one alternative to saying, scrap the 4% rule, make it a 3% rule, and just suffer the consequences. Maybe you build out even more detail in your retirement projection to show higher spending in the early part of retirement, and then it plateaus, and then even lower spending out there in the future. Obviously, there's risks to that. I'm not recommending it, but then it's an alternative. Another alternative to this is maybe starting at that 4% withdrawal rule, but not giving yourself an inflation adjustment every year. And you might say, that's cruelty, or that's not realistic. Well, listen, inflation, CPI, is just a total average of spending. You choose your spending. You choose. And I remember Econ 101, when they taught about inflation, they also taught about substitution. And it's just so practical that, listen, if the price of steak is going up, then maybe you eat chicken. If the price of chicken is going up, then maybe you eat fish. If price of fish is going up, maybe you eat a salad. So maybe in reality, for me, when I go out to eat, I like to spend a certain amount or below. So, and I don't like to go out to eat right now because everything's so expensive. But maybe in reality, you don't need to increase your lifestyle to keep up with inflation every single year because you substitute, and maybe you can build that in your plan as well. Again, not a recommendation, there's risks with that, but maybe that's a way for you to hedge against this. Well, scrap the 4% rule altogether. And then the final sort of adjustment that you could make, or alternative that you could view, is a rules-based withdrawal strategy. Now, to me, I would want you to build out that 5-factor retirement plan and have that guide your retirement decisions. But from there, when you're in retirement, you could say, well, we're going to withdraw a base 3% a year from our portfolio. That's what we're going to base our lifestyle on. If the stock market's good, we're going to withdraw another 1%. If the stock market's bad or our investments are bad, we're not going to withdraw that extra 1%. Something like that. So a rules-based strategy. There's lots of math that suggests this is the best way to map out a sustainable withdrawal rate. However, to me, it flies in the face of reality. In reality, if you've got a certain set of expenses, or you've got a certain lifestyle, to say, well, you can have that lifestyle this year, but you can't have it next year. I don't think many people want to live their retirement that way and run their retirement that way. But this would be a fantastic way to ensure your finances stay strong, doing a rules-based withdrawal strategy. So what makes the most sense for you? Or should it just be the 4% withdrawal rate? What's the withdrawal rate that you're on track to accomplish or to have in your financial life? Is it sustainable? Work with your CFP on that, as well as whether you should adopt any of these alternatives. Work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.